Welcome, everyone. Dr. Anthony Criniti IV here, also known as Dr. Finance. You're on the Dr. Finance Live podcast, folks. We have an incredible guest today. We have Adora Evans here. Appreciate everybody. Let's give a warm round of applause for Adora. Welcome, Adora. How are you?
Well, there's the warm round of I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm very well. Thank you so much. Appreciate you, Adora. Honored to have you here. So, Adora, the format we have, basically we'll start out with a quick 30-second snapshot of yourself, just, 30 seconds, talk about your bio and stuff. And then we're going to deep dive into your story. And then I got about 20 questions or so for you, and then we'll round it out. So that's our template for today.
Awesome. So I have a career in creating connection. I was nicknamed the celebrity connector about 20 years ago. And other connectors will know what I mean. You just see when people and projects they go together, they do better together. I've done everything from work with the designer who dressed Prince and dressed Rihanna, Katy Perry, to helping put together thought leaders, like in the movie The Secret. And so I create events online, on TV, in person, where people get to connect, and events where I'm really strategically connecting people, entrepreneurs specifically, in masterminds. And then I have clients that I am their professional wing gal, and I go create very strategic connections for them in exchange for equity and pay. And so that's my 1 minute snapshot. You asked for 30, but you know how it goes.
All right. Well, yeah. And so that's a nice segue into the story. So I'd love to learn about your story. We have a great audience here of entrepreneurs and just finance students, all a mixed bag of variety of folks that just love to learn about great people like yourself. So if you want to tell us a little about your story, starting out from the beginning. I know you got an incredible story. So where were you originally from?
Texas. Kind of all over. We moved on and off the Air Force Base most of my childhood. About 12, we moved to a little cow town in Quinlan, Texas. It was the first time I heard and remembered friends saying the word y'all, and students were wearing t-shirts, like one had Tweety Bird on it and it said Wrangler butts drive me nuts. So it was a culture shock. So San Antonio Air Force Base, I was pretty much the minority, to now I'm in a cow town with Wranglers. And a lot more will start to make sense for you now. It's kind of all over Texas.
So what was the first 10 years for you like living in Texas? I mean, feel free to tell us any stories you want.
So I'll just jump in so that we can really deep dive on connection. But I do think our stories, and as someone who, if you want to connect to your vision, to your mission, to other people, a lot of our origin story either you may have heard our misery becomes our ministry, or that, things from our childhood often impact who we become, the paths that we choose, what we heal or don't heal, will impact what we're able to earn or not, the levels of intimacy we're able to feel. And I think as anyone wanting to connect with people in general, the more connected you are to who you are and what's running you, or what may have said, like, you become more powerful in the marketplace, in the dating place, in any place that you show up, because when we're connected to ourselves, other people feel it. So my story is like many stories in the self-development industry, and just the humanity. Like, if you're born into the human race, it's a complex, messy fabric that is on the rise, right? I call it the fabric of humanity. So the part of that I jumped in on, we moved a lot, which is probably why I love helping people feel connected, because as someone who went to 13 schools before ninth grade, the feeling of belonging and fitting in was something that was always elusive. And because I love people, I had to learn to connect quickly in order to meet that need of belonging and the feeling of connectedness, right? And so that became definitely a superpower. And then other parts that people find kind of interesting is that I ended up living with friends, first on my own, then with friends at the age of 15. And I lived on my own for a little bit at 12. And, I had a spiritual awakening at 15, got married at 17 while in high school, was the Bible club president, supposed to say prayer at graduation. And I ran away in the middle of the night with another guy for no reason that I could explain at the time. Because right after I broke up with him, it was literally like I did it just to burn the bridge and get out of the marriage. And I personally felt pretty tortured because I was like, I'm defying God. I'm supposed to be this. But now I'm like, and if I had this vision of I was going to be in ministry and be this pastor's wife. He was in college to be a pastor. And now I'm like, I screwed it up, even with God. Like there's no, because what I understood of the Bible then was someone who had been divorced could not be in ministry. Right. So now I'm 18 years old and I'm living in a boarded up home. It was literally boards with the red X on it.
Wow.
That someone let me rent for $50, a really great family. I could either rent it or work on it. And it had no electricity because I didn't have the financial intelligence that, is so important and you're an advocate for. And so I didn't pay my electricity. And so I was living in this boarded up home with no electricity, working in a jewelry store in a small town where I felt I had the scarlet letter. Like everybody knew I was this, Bible girl, and now I'm this scandal. And in the jewelry store, someone came in and she started showing me before and afters of her weight loss journey, which I was getting really excited about because I love fitness, right? Still. And she started telling me she could mentor me and that if I, followed her lead, I could have my own business, right? And at this point in my life, no one that I knew went and completed college. I grew up on welfare. I'd already been molested by my favorite uncle. I'd already been through living with friends, feeling, my mom leaving. I'd been through all these things. And so now that ministry wasn't my path, I really did not see a path for myself. And I started to get a vision as this woman for my life that could be better. So instead of paying for my electricity, I invested in an Herbalife distributor kit. And I'm not in Herbalife anymore. So those of you that are like, here's the pitch, it's not. Okay. But I invested in this kit, and inside of it, you have to be the right age or studied to know what I'm about to say. But there was a cassette tape by Jim Rohn, and I had a battery operated Walkman, which is a device you could put a cassette tape in and play it. And in that cassette tape was about Jim Rohn. It was by Jim Rohn, and Jim Rohn was casting vision. Again, he started saying, listen, I'm going to paraphrase, but he basically said, we're in this metaphorical sailboat. And I want you to get the picture because I said no electricity. There was also no sheetrock and piles of clothes here and there. And I had a little white Persian stray cat. I think it's Persian because it had the flat face, and it had red sauce on its whiskers because it ate what I ate, which was probably a can of ravioli or something right then. I don't know what that was, but he he kept the mice away, which is why I kept a cat around. I'm more of a dog person. So there's no sheetrock, and I'm listening to this tape. I'm feeling
Sorry
like
to
my
interrupt you.
life.
Was it just you in the house, or did you have kids with you?
Yeah, just me.
Oh, okay.
So it's just me in the house, and I'm listening to this cassette tape, and Jim Rohn is saying, look, you're in this metaphorical sailboat, and you are headed in a direction toward a destiny, and you're going to arrive at this destination. And if you want to know where you're headed, look at the choices you've made so far. Look at the household you grew up in. Look at who you're hanging out with. And I was just like, this is not looking good at freaking all, it's not looking good at all. And then he said, the good news is, if you don't like where that boat is headed, you can set your sail in a new direction. And it may take you longer to get to that direction than people who were already headed there, but you will eventually arrive. And I remember that feeling like, oh, like another awakening, like, okay, there's something for me. So I'm really listening. And he said, what you need to do is go get mentors. And I thought, oh, like no one, after he defined what a mentor was, I was like, no one is going to mentor me here. And then he said, if you can't find mentors, the library is full of them, where people have taken what they believe is some of their most meaningful life's work, and they put it in a book for you to access for free. So read books. So I read over 75 books that year, and I listened to thousands of hours of audio programs, Tony Robbins and the 30 Days of Power, whatever that was, Power Talks was my, next one. And I started to get I would apply what I was learning, kind of ignorance on fire, but I was getting bumps in my life. Like, for instance, a one-time nearly $8,000 check in Herbalife, right? And so I started to get like, how fast can I get this stuff into my system? So that began, this shift towards entrepreneurial awakening, I call it, and my hunger and thirst. And part of that was because I really didn't know, I didn't see anything else for my life. I didn't see myself as someone who could go to college or would want to, or even thrive there. I didn't see myself. I didn't have a vision for myself, but the vision of entrepreneurship, and that if I just followed mentors and followed systems, and that I could eventually, have a pathway that really was impactful to the world. That was huge for me. And I've been going for a while. There's more, right? But I want to give you a chance, because like we talked about, you can ask one question and 45 minutes later, they're still talking. Yeah.
No, this is story time. So this is the perfect time for that. So thank you, Adora. I just want to clarify, you're about 18 years old at the time when this happened.
Mm-hmm.
So you're 18 years old and you were introduced to Jim Rohn at 18. So that's incredible. I know this might sound odd to you. I didn't know about any of these folks until maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. Not everybody who comes out of very difficult places, especially urban places where there's a lot of crime and poverty, don't get that opportunity to hear someone like that, right? So in a way, I'm just looking at the bright side of this story.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a lot of negatives we could look at, but the bright side is you were able to discover such a great leader with such a great message at the right time you needed it. And I mean, if you think about it, if you didn't discover Jim Rohn, if you didn't discover anybody else after that, it could have been a much longer time until you started figuring out what to do, what you needed to do, right?
Yeah, I agree. It's part of the reason, I've written a couple of books. I intend to write some more, and you've written books, probably intend to write some more, but I remember thinking, if I can help someone, anyone, one day, the way this person, it felt like he was just coming into one of the darkest places of my life and speaking life, hope, vision, and pulling me forward. If I can ever help anyone, even a tiny bit like this, like I want to be a part of that, and that helps to explain why I'm so obsessive about self-development, and not just my courses, but why I love putting on these events with all these different experts, probably why you love highlighting different people as well, is that there's so much great information and tools and insights and thought processes that if we just had access to them and then applied some of that, my legacy, I have one son who lives in Japan and went to Notre Dame on an academic scholarship. I have another son who's an entrepreneur. I have an 11-year-old who's, fire all the way right now. And they're all very articulate. They all read, they all study, they're all opinionated, they're all strong, they're all fit, which I think health is wealth. So, and I love the legacy I came from. Actually, I do. I believe, again, we're all part of this fabric. And I love representing my legacy, but an entire generation of children have a totally different experience that is nothing remotely close to what I grew up in, or my father grew up in, or his mother and father grew up in. And that can be accredited to not just getting this phenomenal information, but then applying it messy. It's not like I got it perfect ever. I still don't get it perfect. It's usually messy, imperfect action. And it's usually like at that time, especially, and women who are listening, and maybe even men will really relate to this, is if you've ever been through a sexual abuse, or an abuse against the body, often there is a disconnect to the body, because part of survival is like jump out of the place of pain and disassociate and go other places or whatever. And there can become a war, especially when it's sexual abuse, because it's very intimate. Your body still responds when you shouldn't. You're questioning what's happening, or it doesn't respond. I should have said more. I should have fought, whatever. That the bridge of healing the relationship to the self, a lot of those early years, I hated my body. I hated myself. I didn't trust my instincts. I didn't trust myself. I didn't, I had made attempt. So I bring that up because, first of all, the work really works. That's not my experience anymore. But the beauty in knowing that is I used to think back then, if I could just do this well, if I could just get myself to follow these directions again and again, and I couldn't, it was so inconsistent. But what I found is there were little pockets when my soul, my spirit, my mind all took in the information and took action. And those little pockets at that time were maybe 5% of my whole existence, right? But those pockets created quantum leaps, like enough that magic seemed to occur anyway. And then over time, those leaps created better and better. And over time, the narrative in my mind, like I remember I used to look in the mirror and 90% of the thoughts were naturally critical. And then I'd have to say, you know what? You're beautiful. I love your eyes. I love your smile. I love, I'd use the Louise Hay or these self-affirmative statements, but it was truly pure force and pure intentionality, right? Speed it up, like 15 years later, I could be 10 pounds over my normal, which at 5'2", that seemed to make a difference. It could be 2 dress sizes, but I'd catch a glimpse of myself in the mirror and really feel like, dang girl, you're looking good. I love you. And that can sound however it can sound if you don't understand. if you haven't been through that, but anyone who's been through those experiences knows that that's huge, because peace starts right inside of here. It starts inside of how you relate to yourself, to God, to the universe, how safe you feel, how intuitive you feel. If you can trust yourself, you can trust life. And so it was really, really huge. And the whole point of that rant was that wherever you are, you know, you don't even have to get it perfect. You don't even have to be like, once you're at a certain level, we're pushing. And I always believe consistency is key. Do it again and again, show up. Behaviors are going to eventually drive you to become a character that you want to become. But when it's messy and you're seeing yourself like, dang, I'm dropped the ball again. I'm like, grace is so important. And just knowing like, okay, this is just my process, get back on track. And you don't have to buy into a ton of hours. I do suggest it, you know, but my point is that it doesn't take, you know, this grandiose perfection. You can start wherever you are, apply it the best that you can. And you, like Jim Rohn said, you will eventually arrive in the direction that you're headed.
And arrive you did. So let's step back. We'll talk a little bit about you found Jim Rohn. You're still in the house, and then you met up with a potential mentor, I believe. So what happened at that point that started really guiding you into the direction? The self-help movement is now in you. At least you're a part of that process now. And once you go into the self-help movement, you never really look back. So what was your next steps on that journey after that?
Yeah. So then it was all like up.
Smooth sailing.
Yeah,
No
right. No,
that,
it was
right?
it was more like cha, 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 cha. You know, it's more like the stock market on the rise. Even though I thought it was going to be all freaking up. And in the big picture, if you look back, it was all up. But it was more like that jagged stock
the
market.
Daily, charts of the stock market, but when in the longer perspective of the stock market, it's more of an up curve. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you would know, wouldn't you? I should have fact checked that before I used that analogy. Good, it worked. So
I'm not a day trader though.
yeah. Now
I'm a long-term investor.
Long-term, exactly. And so I ended up, you know, moving out, embracing the entrepreneurial path, getting married again, 19. So I'm 19 when I get married again. We have a baby 1 year later. And then about, I don't know, my son was probably 2. Josiah is 24 now. He was probably 2. And his dad and I started having problems. I went from having a Jazzercise franchise in Greenville, Texas, where back then what was in style are these little biker shorts with a thong leotard over it and leg warmers. And so I was having a hard time getting a retainer for a lawyer to move through custody and all that. And so someone told me I could go work at this gentleman's club in Dallas, and that the waitresses wore a uniform pretty close to what I was wearing. So I went and did that. And then I ended up going, hey, the dancers are making way more. I'll become a dancer. And that was my next like major down. And, you know, I wasn't doing the dancer, like the stereotypical dancer type things of drinking. I was drinking Red Bull. You know, I rarely have a drink. I was reading sales books to say, I can't meet you, but meet me at the club. And I would have all these people booked, you know, to come see me, and had all these methods of like boundaries. And I knew it's not where I wanted to stay. I knew it was not like the vision that I had. But I had 2 things going on. In hindsight, from a subconscious level, my friend Ali Madawi said it really well. I had a childhood where my sexuality was leveraged and is what gave me value. Like the person who molested me was the only person listening to me, paying attention to me. I thought we had this grown-up relationship. And so I had a subconscious belief that my sexuality was my value and how I create safety, money. So that was running things. I didn't know that. I just knew. And then I had a conscious thing of I could go in and make rent in a weekend, and I couldn't, I would go try to be a waitress somewhere and it smelled like food and I was paid $2 and something, and I'd be like, forget this, I'm going to go in and make $1,000 in a night in a few hours or whatever. And so I knew I did not want to stay there, but I couldn't get myself to believe that there was something else or to do the hard work of questioning and moving beyond it. And so my body developed a smoke allergy. And so whenever I would go in, then for a week and a half, I couldn't breathe well. I would be groggy and down. Still didn't listen to that. I was looking for a mentor in that club, met someone who worked for the World Bank. And this is going to sound like it's all negative. So we have to move over to the positive stuff soon. But he put Rohypnol in my tea and he drugged me and raped me. Right. And when that happened, I went, okay, I'm not a child anymore. I didn't see this coming. So something I've turned off in my intuition. I want to turn that back on. And I've got to get out of this environment. No more. It was the final, I have got to change my life. And so I did two things. One, I signed up for Landmark Forum. And are you familiar with Landmark?
I've heard it, yeah.
Kind of. Yeah. So I signed up for Landmark Education and I wrote on my application that all I wanted was to believe that I could create a financial path for myself that had me earn at least what I was earning there as a dancer without going back to dancing. And then I read Think and Grow Rich. And so that turns this major chapter that has set me into this path as a career connector, is that in Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill was interviewing all these successful people. And in the chapter where he has you write down what you desire and say it out loud, your definite purpose, I did everything in excess. It wasn't 3 sentences. For me, it was an index, the index cards on spiral bound. It was full. Take me 30 minutes. I wrote everything and anything I could imagine. And one of the things that I wrote is that I would love to interview successful people, but to be paid for it. And so something really cool happened, some things. One is someone else that I had met in that club that did not know that I wasn't working there anymore, didn't know that what had happened to me because I didn't share what I had been through. But he called me randomly, random, not random. And he said, there's a job that I had in my younger years, and it gave me an incredible skill set. He said, they're hiring right now, and I know I could get you the interview. I think it would be really good for you, but you're going to have to pass the psychology test and the interview and all that. And I was like, in a desperate yes. I'd watched this guy go from a small apartment to $1 million company, over $1 million. And I went and got an Ann Taylor suit because, again, I'm 5'2", and Ann Taylor looked very grown up and boxy. I put my makeup on really dark to try to look older. And I buried that I had ever been a dancer. I just said I took some time off to be a mom. Like how opposite, right? But anyway, I got the I had to go through real psychology tests. They did a 2.5-hour personality psychoanalysis because they apparently had a ton of turnover there. And I got the job, and the job was as a producer for Pat Summerall Productions on the Discovery Channel. Wow. So my name literally ran in the credits as producer. And the job was they would hand me, I sat in a cubicle, so it wasn't as glamorous as it sounded, but I sat in a cubicle and they would hand me this stack of white sheets of paper that had the CEO's name, the company industry, the phone number, and how much they're revenuing. And they had to be revenuing over 10 million to even land there. And my job was to call them and say, hey, we're thinking of featuring you. I'm not sure if you'd be a fit, but I need to ask you some questions. And so that I got really good at getting through the gatekeeper to the decision maker to the actual person in a very short time. And then the whole sales process was an interview process. And I wasn't even through. I didn't know whether to call you Dr. Anthony or Dr. Finance. I wasn't even through with the book, Think and Grow Rich, when that happened. And I had been shouting out loud, I'm paid to interview successful people, and nobody knew what I was burying, what I was running from, and the hope and the future and the vision that I was running toward. And that moment, set up my whole path of becoming known as someone who could really create very strategic alliances, get through the gatekeepers, like that kind of thing. And I said there were a few important things about that. One is that most people think, okay, if you say you want to interview successful people, nowadays that would mean start a podcast, go to journalism school, but what I want to say is that while I am so about strategy and inspired action is a must if you're ever going to create anything in life, right? It was not those actions that create the reality. It was setting a vision and aligning with a vision with so much fire in my heart and really standing in maybe even naive faith that something would happen because these smart people put it in a book, and I thought they were doing better than me, that created a seeming like miracle. Like that is so random, so wild to have that exact experience. And so as much as there's strategy and action, we as co-creators with God, with the universe, with infinite intelligence, whatever your belief is, we have this unseen power that hasn't been fully backed by science yet, but I think it's only a matter of time. And that is the most important, and will move things that you can't even imagine while you're moving yourself. The second part is that, a lot of times when people have feelings about their mistakes or things they're ashamed of or places in their life that weren't good, I just want to put a flag in the ground right here that opportunity came to me from the same place, where I was dancing. And now I'm not saying like, just go do stupid things and then say the universe is going to work it out for me. God's going to work it out for me. Right. But I just want to notice that no matter where you are, and for me, that belief is that God was with me in all of those places. Spirit was with me in all those places and created opportunity for me, even in the place that I couldn't leave, that was not for my highest and greatest good, that I was ashamed of, that I would not recommend anyone go take on as a job. It wouldn't be what I aspire for my daughter, to become. And yet, there was something orchestrating for me, even in that place. And again, you never know where someone is when they're listening, and it's all relative. But whatever is happening in your life, just know that there's always something for you to move forward with if you'll be open and open your eyes and be willing.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Dora. And Dora, I just want to say, it was okay that I thank you for opening up on your vulnerable past. I mean, that's a big story. It's a lot that you just shared, but I also want to acknowledge that that's important. It's important to affirm like our struggles, because what people are seeing right now is the successful version of you, right? Like I think it's very important to show people the reality of getting to success. You're just not born that way. Watch the journey now. Watch the journey that you had to go through to get to this finished product. And it's not finished. It's constantly in refinement. But there was a struggle. There was lots of them and a lot of things. So people who are listening that are just like you right now, maybe 20 years ago, they're out there listening. They're like, yeah, that's me. And they're seeing that you went through this. So you're connecting with them. And it's by doing that, you're actually helping them the way Jim Rohn helped you. So I applaud you on that. You know, it's definitely very great that you shared that. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
And also, so it's funny because Jim Rohn, he set you on fire and basically said, all right, go in this direction. You're okay, you know, and gave you a little metaphor. And he said that all your mentors, if you don't have a mentor, is in the library. So what did you do? You went to the library and you found Napoleon Hill. He was right. Your mentor was in the library. Of course, Napoleon Hill was dead at the time, but his book was there. You know, so that became your next mentor, right?
Yeah, and it just shows we don't have any excuses, because back then there wasn't Clubhouse.
Yeah.
There weren't Facebook Lives. There weren't places you could go and ask questions and all these different groups and programs. And the only way you touched a mentor like that for me in that little town was if someone told you there's an event in Dallas and you carpooled together, and then maybe you got in a room for a moment. And that didn't happen for me for several years after that, right? So I still feel like Jim Rohn was talking right to me in there. That's also, you know, the value of those of you who are content creators, or you're creating a book or a podcast, or you're doing something live, is that, you know, someone who reads it later, sees it later, you don't know how it's going to uplift them, impact them, and how you're going to continue to make ripples beyond your current moment or the moment that you're in. So, you know, when you do something and only 2 people are there, or no one's there, and you're going, why am I doing this? You know, just keep at it, because you never know, right? And it is a journey. Like, you don't become the best. You don't become Dr. Finance with interviewing all these people without first showing up consistently when no one was really there, and figuring out the system and going through some bumps. And it takes time and practice. And even if you never become, you know, the level that you aspire, the people that you impact along the way, they absolutely will, you know, feel, and their family, their children will be better because, you know, because of all of that. But the point of that is, the other point is that there are no excuses, because we have way more access now. I couldn't have Jim Rohn looking at my life and giving me his opinion at that point that I knew of. And so much happened from reading the books, and it's not just reading them, it's applying it. I think Preston, yesterday we were talking, and he was like, applied knowledge is where the power is, you know? So yeah, we're inundated right now with opportunity to grow and flourish if we just pick a lane and stay the course, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So thank you, Doris. So just to continue on your journey, so we get the rest of your story, if you could take us to present, that'd be good. So
yeah, I'll do a jump. I'll be more succinct now. The beginning is and like you said, the beginning is important because everybody has their own struggle and their own stories, their own shame, their own burdens that they may carry as limiters into why they can be their best, have the life that they want. I often have to tell myself, hey, God loves me as much as Oprah. And it's the same for anybody watching, anybody you admire. God, I love the word God, but God, spirit, the universe loves you as much as any other. And the more we can accept that and receive that and just stop playing you love her more than me, you love him more than me, which is constricted, limited, ungrateful, even though it looks like, a sad little pity party that needs encouragement. It's actually pretty selfish. That's what it's okay. It's okay. And along the journey, I needed a lot of no, you are enough. But then when you heal to a certain point, you have to dust that attitude off and realize God, give me the eyes to see all that I actually have and to receive it. Right? That's gratitude. If you're receiving it, then what you receive is that there's limitless opportunity, no matter what it looks like, if you'll just receive how good it actually is and everything that is coming to you. So what ended up happening is I became a top producer there. Our quota was one deal a month at $26,000, and most people were not hitting quota, which is why the turnover rate was crazy. And I was doing 5 to 7 deals a month because I was I can't believe this is happening. I'm interviewing and I was reading all these Ogmandino, the greatest salesman, and printing it, which is so wrong, copyright infringement, right? But I printed copies of it and handed it to all the other producers, and we'd read the scrolls together. And, that turned to me this whole windy path of, someone I met at Landmark. There's the next major step. Someone I met at Landmark. We were both praying for a friend, and we connected out of 200 people. She's my best friend still, Mesa. Her husband is Jerry D. Rhino Clark. And at the time, he was on all the network marketing stages, training network marketers. Les Brown was coming and staying at his house, Myron Golden staying at his house. He mentored Myron Golden. And I went to him and said, look, I have this skill. I can pretty much call anyone and get them to say yes to an interview. I think I should do an interview series. He goes, you know what? I have an interview series. It's called Standing on the Shoulders of Giants. I'll pay you for everyone that you connect for me. So I started getting all these people for him. He paid me very well. I got Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar, Dan Millman, Brian Tracy. I lost your face. I got all these different people to agree to be interviewed by him. And I didn't ask, even though these people were my heroes, I didn't ask them for anything, right? So did all that. And Matt Morris, he started Success University. I'd met him in a network marketing company. We've been friends over 20 years now. And he said, Adora, I want to pay you to get an hour of content from all these people. Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar, Greg Reed, Brian, I found Greg Reed actually, because I saw he was teaching stuff online. And I started calling them. And I could do it. I could literally either, at that time, the internet was going, but my skills were so high that I could walk. So for Matt Morris, I think Success University was 2004.
Wow, you've been that entrenched for that long. It's almost 20 years.
Yeah. So I know for sure 2004 was Jerry Clark and Standing on the Shoulders of Giants. I did all the What the Bleep Do We Know people, including Elaine Hendricks, who she's the actress who's the stepmom in Parent Trap. So I ended up living with her for a bit in LA and doing some work with women together. And that's how I met the designer and But so what happened is I would get, I even remember when Matt asked me, he called me on his birthday, and I didn't know the story was he hired a director of education who was supposed to get all this content, and he had his whole system, platform, everything ready to go. And then the director of education just totally flaked out and didn't have anybody for him. And so he said, Adora, it's my birthday. And I was like, I'm working on helping women and writing a book. I don't know. He goes, it's my birthday. Please do it. And so I ended up getting all these people, including Greg Reed. That's when I first met Greg Reed. And then he had someone who was like, I need a connector. Oh, Adora got me. And so then it was this whole word of mouth kind of, people would call me and I'd be like, no, I'm here to help women feel good in their bodies. But what I noticed is people were hunting me down. Like even Matt at that point was a millionaire. Jerry was a multimillionaire. And they were saying, I can't do what you do. I want to pay you to go do this for me. And it was the first time I started to get a feeling for, oh, I have this skill set that is valuable and there's a way to be paid for it. I didn't really totally know that yet, but now to bring it up, just to scrunch it all together and bring it up to
Take your
current.
time, Adora. There's no pressure. I got my whole day blocked off for you, so it's okay.
Yeah, you're so cool. So that ended up just opening all these doors of cell phones of all these really successful people. And they would always, for the most part, take my call because I never said, Jim Rohn, you're my hero. Will you endorse my book? Will you come speak? Will you come help me, mentor me, teach me? I never did that. I always called and said, I have this opportunity for you, and even Denis Waitley, by the way, I first called him at Pat Summerall Productions. I'd gotten to the point where I could source my own leads and didn't have to work from the white sheets of paper if I didn't want to. And so I called Denis Waitley, and that's when we became friends. And, at one point I was like, I wonder if Success University or Success Magazine would want to interview Denis Waitley. So, and then I wonder if so I would call Denis and say, hey, if I can get an interview with Success Magazine, is that something you'd want to do? Hey, Success Magazine, if I can get an interview with Denis Waitley for you, is that so? Yes. And then they're both loving me. Right. And it got to the point over several years that Denis started going, well, what can I do for you, Adora? What can I do for you? And I'd be like, I don't know, Denis. When I know, I'll let you know, believe me. But, the first several years of that were just like, I'm so thrilled that I know these people because it was shifting my identity. See, like for me, the fact that Denis knew me by name and would take my call meant that my past did not equal my future, and that the vision inside of my heart that life could one day be better was true, and now a lot of people in looking back would go, you should have raised your standards sooner. You should have done this sooner. And in hindsight, that's so easy to say, right? But from where I was, that was everything to me. And it's one of the reasons I'm such a super duper forever freaking fan girl of Denis Waitley, because there were times when I was back at an all-time self-sabotaging low. What is that show? Shameless. Like my life was, the little bit that I watched of that show, there was a lot that resonated with old parts of my family, my life, right? And so there are moments where I was in that low and I would have this little journal and it would say I called it Signs of High Calling. And it might have 7 things in it that I collected over a 10-year period. And what that journal meant to me is if I read this, it's a reminder that God has something for me. And in there was something like, Denis Waitley takes my calls, And so he didn't know me then, but for me, it was everything. Like it was that little branch that I needed, to just hold on to for another, year of hard times or whatever. And so, so the reality is I wasn't there. I wasn't there yet of I'm going to turn this into gold, or I'm going to make this like Eminem might have done more with it. Probably would have, right? But yeah, so that's how that whole career went. And it took me all over the place. I was a senior writer for a fashion and art magazine in Egypt. I got to work, like I said, with and walk red carpets and work with a lot of cool celebrities. I got to help with a lot of different really cool projects. And then over the past, 5, 7, I guess it's been 7 years now, I've been really focused on the self-development industry in general. I started with women and helping them manifest and helping them believe more, receive more by feeling safe in their bodies so they can, and confident in themselves so that they can trust their gut instincts, trust the callings, count on themselves, make powerful choices, right? And then that led to teaching women to sell high ticket, spiritually driven entrepreneurs. And then, but I found myself still doing these events, right? These different things with amazing men like the Napoleon Hill Foundation. Now you see why I'm crazy about doing things with them as well. And Denis Waitley, the Can You Really Think and Grow Rich tour, and these various events that moved me. And any entrepreneur knows this, that if you're going to stay relevant, being willing to pivot and adapt and follow where your genius is bringing value forward still needs to be aligned with who you are and what you stand for. But now the way this expression lives is, again, I create these. One more thing about the connection place and how I landed there is Dr. DeMartini, I've also known for 20 something years. And in one of the interviews, it really landed big time again, because it lands every time I hear it, but is that if you will take a look at where you're wealthy, that we are all very wealthy, whether you're a mom who knows how to get her kids to pack their own lunches and to eat well, or whether you're a connector or a finance person, that we all have areas that we're really wealthy. And if you can package that up as a service, then people who are not wealthy in that area or don't want to spend their time and would rather have it done for them by someone who is wealthy in that area, they'll pay you. And what I realized is over 20 something years, no matter how much I say, I want to help women feel good, love good, manifest, what pays me and hunts me down from, the highest places of success, people will hunt me down for my ability to create strategic alliances or to have access to one of my alliances. So my love of self-development and all that, now I create these events virtually, online and TV, where people get access to these amazing speakers, teachers, resources, because access, as witnessed by my life, it can mean everything for someone, or even a little thing that makes a big difference. And so that's my generous, I look at it as generosity. Anybody can come to the free things that I put on and get value and go do stuff with it. So wherever they are on the spectrum, and they get access to conversations they don't normally have. Then the masterminds, where I'm actually like, it's elite, people pay more for it, but they're getting networked and they have me and they're weaving people together, and I'm teaching, how do you connect? How do you elevate? And then with my one-on-one clients, the way I still get to stand for women is, one, being a woman, I believe I am a stand every day that I make the choice to live my best version. But the other thing is I do a ton of these events dedicated to and with a group called Project Uprise, where we're focused on ending child trafficking in the US. So we focus on the interception, rehabilitation of children who've been child trafficked here. And so I still get to have all the expression, but, different formula for it.
Thank you so much, Adora. Adora, I just want to step back because you shared a lot of great stuff. First of all, I love that quote, the past does not equal your past does not equal your future. I mean, it's such a simple formula that is so powerful. Like there's a lot of sayings out there. I know Denis Waitley loves them sayings. He actually got me turned on to the idea of these small segments of just like quotes, the way he presents it. But
Yeah, he's so
that's
brilliant.
beautiful. Yeah, he's brilliant with that. And he can turn on a dime in a conversation, which I love it. He can pivot real quick, without telling the story. Like if you wanted a quick answer, he'll give you a quick answer. If you want a story, he can go back and forth. It's great. But anyway, the second thing I want to ask you about was, so you met Jim Rohn before you met Denis Waitley, is that right? So you actually, is that
I think I met Jim Rohn after Denis, actually.
after
Mhm.
that? What was it like meeting Jim? Because Jim was this guy that really set you on this path, even to the point of meeting Napoleon Hill's, finding Napoleon Hill's book.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
So
must have been a
Jim,
crazy
that
day.
was that was incredible. And there, now we'll talk about missed opportunity, because we all have the shots we miss and the ones that we run with, right? I met him and it was near the end of his life, and I told him my story, and I told him I was going to write a book and I'd love for him to do the foreword. And he was like, I will do it. But I didn't write the book for 20 years, right? 15 years later, I finally got myself to complete and put out. I had a spirit of perfectionism, which is an evil thing. I'm just kidding.
Well, you got to get Kyle Wilson
yeah.
to do the forward. He's his partner.
Yeah, I know Kyle. Yeah, I like Kyle. I do. No, I said that. Like, I like Kyle. I love Kyle. I actually love Kyle. And yeah, and that's an idea, but there was something about Jim. It would have been incredible. And it's a good lesson. And like, just get your stuff together. Go get the forward before you write it. Now I know more, but all good.
How about Tony Robbins? I mean, that's one of his students. That's a good goal.
That would be a really good one. And you know what? One of my one of the people that I work with and have a few projects going with, and now Denis is working with them, is Jim Poole of Newcom. And Tony is an investor in Newcom. And Jim Poole just had dinner with Tony a couple days ago, so at his house. So that's not as far fetched. Thank you for that inspiration.
Yeah, we're pretty close to bringing Tony into our community. We had Jay Abraham on the podcast, on the show the other day. I mean, that's his mentor. Platinum members, all kinds of famous people connecting. We're pretty close. Once he discovers all the beauty this community has, he's going to love it. So
I agree.
Thank you, Dora. So bringing it full to present. So basically you're doing, I think you said the other day in very simple terms, 1/3 events, 1/3 basically strategic alliances, which create business opportunities where you take a percentage, kind of like a Shark Tank. And then the other third would be, what was the other third again?
No, it's very close. It's still in the event category, but it's in mastermind settings where we're creating connections. Exactly. Thank you you're great with simplifying things. Thank you for reminding me of that.
So cool. So that takes us forward to the present, and right now that's basically what you're doing. But you said that started like the past 7 years ago, really, where you kind of digressed from just going out there and getting interviews from people. You don't have to put money. You tell us about your salary or anything, but if you were getting, those kind of deals you were talking about working for, I believe Landmark, right? Like you were getting, I calculated about almost 150,000 to 200,000 a month in revenue from that. You said 5 or 6 at 24,000 a pop. Was it really worth it for you to go over? You probably took a pay cut to go in a different direction, to go interview all these other folks, but like I'm sure there was more of a passion related to that task.
I'm so glad that you brought that up. Let me take a little drink out of my Mickey Mouse cup.
Folks, we are advertising in Disney World at this point. You gotta get a Dr. Finance cup. You gotta get one of these and promote, or an Adora Evans cup,
I like the Dr. Finance cup. Yeah. And look, remind me of what we were just talking about, the pay cut, but I do want to say something.
Oh,
So I had a story that my mom didn't love me. I was raised by my dad. My mom left when I was young. I didn't see her except for like once a year until I was 13. I found out later I was kidnapped for a couple of years. And I do remember that. And then by the time she came back in, she felt like she didn't want to mess with my stability. My dad had insurance, all this stuff. And my dad is an amazing human, right? But they were young, messing. And when I say amazing human, he's my dad. So I love him. And, but now the point of this, I moved in with my mom when I was 13 for a couple of years. And one of the reasons that really, a couple of reasons I kept feeling she didn't love me. Have you heard of love languages? The 5 love languages?
Yeah.
Okay. So my dad
Wait,
would
you
tell
talking
me
about
all
the
the
5 romance languages?
maybe. Yeah, it's the 5 love
Spanish,
languages.
Italian, French.
No, no, the 5 love languages. It's like that we all have these 5 languages, but most of us have 1 or 2. It's how we give love and how we receive love. So words of affirmation is one of those. Touch is another one. Gifts, acts of service, like I'm going to do the laundry, make you a meal, fix something. And then quality time, like they want just your time, quality. And so everybody has all of these, but I was closer to my dad. My dad gave me a lot of words, a lot of like he would touch, hug, and then he would give me gifts, right? My mom is the total opposite. Hers was acts of service and then gifts. So acts of service, when I've done the test, used to be the least valuable to me, right? So if someone is communicating love in a language it's not your main language, you can feel unloved. And especially to a words person, and Denis's words too, words of affirmation, if you give them the opposite, it feels like hate. So if you criticize them, even if you mean to do it to help them, it feels like you hate them. And so this is valuable for children, for relationships, for business, right? Anyway, I felt like she didn't love me. But one Christmas, that first Christmas, I told her that I liked Mickey Mouse. And when I woke up that day, all the wrapping paper was Mickey Mouse sheets, Mickey Mouse watch, Mickey Mouse shoes, Mickey Mouse folders, Mickey Mouse, every gift, so many gifts, but all Mickey Mouse. She even drew, because she was an artist, Mickey Mouse onto a bag.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can I see that mug again?
Yeah.
I noticed on your sleeves, your buttons are kind of
Yeah,
similar.
they're like little hearts. They kind of match his buttons, don't they? I didn't notice that. Oh, that's so funny.
And you're wearing red too. So
it all goes, right?
yeah.
So the reason, and this comes down to connection, right? But the reason I drink from this, and in my coffee mugs, I use to advertise something to me. They're first thing in the morning, but it's to remind me that was my mom showing me love. And that even when I didn't feel it, I was always loved by her. And so when I drink out of this cup, it's rewriting that old story that I had for younger years and reinforcing the actual truth. Because someone who doesn't love you, who's very, she's very strategic and logical and very kind of a loner. I'm very social. She's very loner. To make all that effort and to draw for me, that was love. I didn't get it. I didn't understand it at the time. But yeah, the theme of self-development, connection, rewriting stories. I love those little things. So thanks for letting me share that.
Adora, that is just, that's beautiful. I really appreciate you sharing that story. That's because it's so true. It's like you don't realize, maybe at the moment you might not realize what people are doing for you. It looks the complete opposite of the way your emotions are intercepting that communication. But after all the smoke is clear and you get the macro view, you see the real truth behind that. And that's just a testimony to never judge anybody unless you really understand their situation, which you may not, and be open to the idea you may not understand through the moment that you're currently at. You may not currently understand what they're going through until you actually go through that at some point in your life. It could be 20 years from now. Like as a non-parent, you might not get that until you become a parent, and then you walk through every one of those steps and say, whoa, I see what they were doing. So yeah, I applaud you on sharing. That's a beautiful story. I really like that.
Thank you. Thank you. So the pivot, there's another powerful thing for connectors. We spoke of the love languages. You know, there are different personality types. We hear all these different systems. We're all dynamic. We all have all of them. But a lot of times, natural connectors, they have a strong either supporter personality, where they really want to be the peacemakers. They want people together. They make sure, you know, no man left behind. Like, does everyone feel included in the conversation? Or they're promoter. They have a strong promoter personality. Like, they share everything that they love. They're PR people. They're excited. They're animated. And then there are two more main personality types. And I know there's everything from gene keys to bank code to discs to all these, but I'm just working with a framework to help us. There's the green or the analytical type that really thinks in details and spreadsheets and, you know, really they're accountants, or, you know, they really understand systems better than a lot of people. And then and they tend to be a little more introverted, that part of the personality. And then the other one is the shark, or what used to be called the Donald Trump before he was the president, and it became so controversial, but their bottom line, they don't want to know about your children. They want to know, what does this have to do with me? Where are we going? Time is money, right? And again, we all have all of them. And I think the more you develop, you get more range with each of them. Back then, something happened as a producer. Once we turned a deal over to the executive producers, the initial producer had no more contact with the clients, right? And what happened is there was a deal that I did, and the client called back and they couldn't get back to me. So they made up a fake name, like called and called and called, then made up a fake name to get through to me. And when they got through to me, they said, hey, I know. So it was $26,000 for one 5-minute segment of the whole show. And there were 4 segments in a show. He said, I know that we've committed to one segment, but what do you think if we take all 4 segments? I want to know your opinion. Do you think that's valuable? And so I started sharing, yes, I do think it's valuable, because you would have the whole show. We haven't done that before, da, 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 da. Well, after we closed the deal, they told me I was not going to earn a commission on those other 3 because it was not supposed to come to me. And so at that point in my life, I didn't have a strong red personality, or the bottom line kind of personality. I had squelched that. And I was learning it through becoming a producer and having to be that to get through the gatekeeper. But I didn't have it hadn't yet made its way into my personal life, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't have the courage to say, that doesn't work for me. That's BS. Those guys, and it makes me feel unappreciated. Like, obviously, it was my opinion that sold him on that. None of you would have sold him. He hunted me down, you know. Instead, I slowly, my production went way down. I didn't do a deal. I think I did one in 1 month. And then the next month, I went, you know what? I think it's time for me to move on. And I moved into network marketing. I recruited my senior producer to join me. That's where I met Matt Morris. He was my upline, and we became top 10 in that company that's now not around. But the point of that is, you know, being courageous and even learning the skills that you need to be able to say what is true for you is very generous. Because they came back to me and they were like, Adora, is there something we could have done? And even then I didn't tell them, because my personality was like, I don't know, that would be mean. That's abrasive. It's it's confrontational. And I was very afraid of confrontation at that time. I was really ruled by people pleasing. And I keep bringing up traumas because I don't believe we can grow to the level we're meant until we heal our traumas. So the level of my trauma was that when things got crazy around me, they got loud, or someone was unhappy. At one point, my dad was suicidal, and I would be called in to say, hey, don't kill yourself. I love you. So it became very important for me that he felt good and that he was happy. And that, because if he wasn't, it could mean the end of my whole world. And then my own, as a child, that's your survival, right? So that was ruling me in business. So those of you who are like, I'm focused on my business, I don't have time for all this spiritual woo-woo shiz where we're going to talk about our emotions, or you wonder, why does Tony Robbins take you into your beliefs, or some of these people? That's why, right? Or Preston, emotional intelligence, right? That's why, because in that moment, that trauma that I didn't even know was running me became a limiter, and that I'd rather just keep the peace because it's dangerous if it's not peaceful. And then that became the end of what they really wanted me still there. I'd already, was mentoring other people, had a corner office, and I totally deflated and then went separate ways. So the opportunity in healing trauma is you go to your next level. We'll only go to the levels of our healing, right? And beyond our whatever's blocking us. And then the other thing is having the courage to find ways to have tough conversations, that it's actually very generous to share with someone when you're holding something in the space, because often we make up how it's going to go. And then we don't give the opportunity of the person or of yourself to be better than you imagined. And the only way you get to better than you imagined, look, you may bring it up and they may be like, meh, and then you're like, okay, I know who I'm working with. I wouldn't even do that. I go, could I have said it in a different way? Was I aggressive in my tone? Is there another way to say it? I'm that girl. I'll like try a few angles before I'm like, okay, they really are a jackass, excuse my language. And that's a judgment too. I'm aware, right? I'd have to counsel myself through, well, where am I being a jackass? But the point is that what's so beautiful is when you walk through hard conversations together and you have the courage to say, hey, this isn't working for me. I really should have, then probably they would have given me a commission. And if they didn't, they would be very clear of how they lost me and what they did wrong, right? But with the way I left it, it was just like, I don't know, we had a great girl, then she deflated, maybe because she didn't make a sale, she, felt bad. And I don't know. So they're left with their story, and that's my responsibility, right?
Mm. That's beautiful. And speaking of your story, Adora, that's a beautiful story you have. We're going to shift into the next segment now. I got a handful of questions for you, and then we'll conclude out. So thank you so much for everything you did so far. All right. So we're back with Adora Evans here, folks. We got an incredible story. If you've been listening, definitely check it out again. If you want to hit a replay, it's a good thing about recordings. You can listen as many times as you want. So now we're moving into incredible questions we have here. So Adora, first question is really more of just a thought. Like, you want to tell us a little about, do you have any books out there? And if so, what kind of books you've authored or co-authored, anything about books in relationship to you?
Yeah, so I have several different co-authored. I was in a couple of the Napoleon Hill Foundation books, but the books that I have written, Majestic Money, the 30-day Femme manifesting game, and then there's a workbook that goes along with it, and it's also out on Audible. I wrote that because I was focused on women feeling confident, like I've talked about, and safe in their intuition and their instinct. And I played this 30-day game with these women with the goal of like, we're going to manifest more. And what I noticed is in that 30-day game, people played more full out because money was on the end of it. Like, we're going to manifest money than they did at that time, I think my mastermind was like 2,500. That was all about women awakening to their own feminine divinity. And this 30-day game, I charged $30 for, and I did it literally to create a tripwire for a funnel. But women not only manifested in that 30 days, there were less than 12 women manifested her dream house with presents for all of her kids, a car. And another woman, people just several manifested checks for $1,000 or cash rebates, things coming in that they hadn't planned. But the core work of it were things like healing mother wound, healing father wound, tapping into your real desire, learning. Like, it was not about money. And I would retitle it if I were doing it again and it wasn't already on Audible and and already out there. Like, I need to do something about the real practicality of money one day, but maybe something with you. But yeah. And the funny thing is, as many men have read and reviewed that book as women, but I don't talk about it a lot, because when I talk about it, then people start asking me questions about manifesting, which I love, but connection is my focus right now. So I need to put out a book around connection.
So that's your only book that you actually authored, right? Majestic Money.
So there are two, Majestic Money, and then the playbook that goes with it. Mm-hmm.
Who did the forward for that book?
Don. Well, we have Denis Waitley. We have Don Green of the Napoleon Hill Foundation.
That is incredible. And we're co-authors too. I just remembered. On one book, at least, for the
with Eric. What is it? The Steps to Riches 13 with Eric.
Volume 1 you did with Denis Waitley. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible series. So wow. And any other co-authored books you want to mention, or any other books?
No, I mean, there are a few out there, but I would have to sit here and think to remember.
Okay. Well, yeah. That's really cool, folks. So check it out, Majestic Money. All right. And let's see what else we got here. Do you have any podcasts? I think it's more fun to listen to it on Audible.
I do have some out. I did a podcast, the Rich Queen podcast series, and I had some cool people on there. And but no, I haven't done a new episode. I mean, it is there on Spotify, and it has some good people. But yeah. Okay.
I know you have a lot of great interviews. So let's talk about, if you don't mind, we'll talk about the retreat that I first time I got to meet you in 2 years in the physical form. So at the Mastermind retreat, I know we just did a special retreat edition of this podcast before this, but what was your thoughts, if you can summarize everything we talked about, maybe a minute or two about the.
So I always value intimate settings where I am surrounded by like-minded people and people that I respect. And so that's what you created with Preston, was this intimate retreat in a beautiful setting. You brought in you guys brought in Mark Victor Hansen and his wife. I know Sharon Lecter was there. And after I left, Dean Graciosi, and
that was unplanned.
Okay. That wasn't planned. Yeah. All right. So you had some surprise guests. Yeah. We had some surprise guests that I was already gone, but
we met them at, actually it was that Monday. We went to go have lunch after the breakfast.
Okay.
We had the house, and we gave the keys in already, and we're like, hey, let's go eat lunch. And they were at that place. So it was
cool. It was totally unplanned.
Talk about the universe and all that stuff,
Yeah, that's beautiful. So anyway, I loved being in an intimate setting and really having access and seeing how Mark and Preston and his wife and the grandkids, how they interact and all the dynamics of that. Because I think it's one thing, having been exposed to so many incredible self-development people. There is the performance and the act that we put out that's a polished, finished product. And then there is the way people move in their life the majority of the time, and the character.
I am so glad you're being honest about this subject. That is so important. So under talked about. Like, there really is. It's a finished product, folks. When you see a lot of stuff on television, on the internet, like, news, and that's all finished. There's time, thought behind all that. If you look beyond that and you look to see, all right, how does this person act in real life? That's what Adora is talking about, and that's the real them. And that's when the old expression, "Are you being real?" That's what they're talking about.
Yes, yes. And look, we all have imperfect moments. I mean, personally, I went through a 3-month travel tour where I was coming to the end of that and really just looking forward to being in my own home, integrating things, kind of having an exhale. And I went to one event where I learned lots of people were looking to meet me. And the way I showed up in that place was kind of like, I just want to go to my hotel room right now and have a moment by myself, where most people who meet me experience me as warm, even in the grocery store. I'm like, "Hey, how's your day?" Da, da, da. I'm that girl, And so in that moment, I probably showed up to some people as like, "Wow, she's very standoffish," or icy. And so when you're on the same note, when I'm saying this, it's important to show grace for other people too, because these celebrity speakers, thought leaders, teachers, you never know what they're walking through, and they may just be dealing with the trauma and they're still in the public eye and they have to smile, or they're exhausted or whatever. So we always give grace. And there are certain people that more thoroughly live and walk and move in life, the ideals that they've put into their finished product. And there are even amazing things that they live, breathe, and walk that they do it so unconsciously. They don't even know to put it in their finished product. And that's the value of hanging out with people, is that nuggets drop out of their mouth, or ways of being, or how they greet their children, how they engage, that you just can't pick up from a book. And so my favorite people in the world are really congruent with what they teach. They live it. It's what I aspire to be, and I miss it. Like I just told you, I missed it at one. And in hindsight, I was like, man, I should have been more. I didn't even think of, they were wanting to meet me. And I mean, I should have been more engaged, or blah, blah, blah. Right. That was a hindsight lesson. So those of you who are writers, teachers, speakers, just, knowing that you hold a responsibility. People are watching you. And that was a 7-minute answer. Let's go. We're going to go to the next one.
But you loved the retreat. Everything was great, right?
It was awesome. Yeah.
Okay. All right, folks. And again, we're talking about the Mastermind retreat with Sharon Lecter, Mark Victor Hansen, my partner, Preston Weekes, in Paradise Valley, Arizona. We rented a $10 million mansion. By the way, Adora, we got round 2 coming. We're working on dates right now, probably first or second week of August, somewhere in a beautiful part of Utah with amazing folks. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Well, with that said, let's talk about your masterminds. So you got to experience our masterminds. I want to know about your masterminds. It's a third of your revenue and one of your sources of excellence. So what is it? Tell us all about your masterminds and how long you've been doing that and all that stuff.
Yeah. So, and I was just looking at my calendar to see, we're doing an in-person event with Les Brown in Atlanta in August. But it's not written on my wall calendar yet. So I'm going to have to talk to you and Preston to make sure we don't overlap and we can be at each other's stuff. So these masterminds, the last one that I did was in St. Lucia, and it was a Think and Grow Rich mastermind. We had the former VP of Bob Proctor's company, and now she owns Think and Grow Rich Coaching. We had several 8-figure earners. We had a couple real estate moguls. We had Satish, the president of Think and Grow Rich Institute. And we did a deep dive mastermind where everyone went, hey, what moved the needle in your life or business this year that you can share with the rest of us? What do you need? And like, how can we help you? And then we literally just, started, I get in there and start weaving people together. And we also filmed some of that as part of the Dining Divas show. So that aired on the We Network, which is really cool. Oh. So we have another one coming up in July in Puerto Rico with Think and Grow Rich. And we got some cool names coming in. That one will go on the Travel Channel. Part of it will go on the Travel Channel. And so I have these one-off kind of masterminds like that people can go to, and I do them in collaboration with the other people. And then I'm now putting together 2 groups, one with Preston that you'll hear about, and it's for people that are revenuing under $1 million, but they want to scale. And we're focused on scaling with systems, relationships, AI, automation. So that'll be really cool. It'll be virtual and have an in-person element. And then I have a private group that's by invitation only for people doing over $1 million. And we focus on funding, scaling, what does it take, and team and resources, joint ventures. And in both of those, I love seeing the deal flows and being in the center of them, because if there's something that just makes a lot of sense, then I'll get more involved and we work out, what does that look like,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How many retreats you do a year?
This year, I don't know. I would say there are going to be at least 7.
Wow. Physical ones?
No. Of the physical, there'll be about 4. Okay. And then the others will be online. Mm-hmm.
Wow. And they're all yours? Your retreat?
Well, 2 of those are in collaboration, right? So one is with Uprise and Les Brown, that retreat. And then one is with Dining Divas and Epic Talks and Think and Grow Rich. We're doing the Puerto Rico Mastermind.
Wow. That sounds like a lot of fun. Don Green's going to be there?
Don Green I don't know if he's going to be at the Puerto Rico one. Satish Verma definitely will be. And he has Think and Grow Rich Institute, and a percentage goes to Napoleon Hill Foundation.
Wow. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That's like a great like Caribbean destination for a retreat, I think.
I think so too. Yeah. And Dr. Finance, for Americans looking to have tax advantages, it's a great opportunity to go check the city out, look at investment properties, that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Adora. All right, Dora, so why do you like Masterminds so much? Maybe 1 minute.
Well, again, it's that in-person, something happens in synergy and relationship and resources. I mean, it's kind of like dating. There was a period of time I was on a dating site and someone could look awesome on paper, and then I meet them in person and they have a high-pitched voice and look, and we're not vibing. In a mastermind, there are layers of expertise, of relationship, of experience that come alive, that I always leave better. I'm selective with what masterminds I go to and attend. We all only have so much time. But if you choose a mastermind that is full of a tribe of people that you're really vibing with, you can have major quantum leaps in life. Business.
Beautiful response. How could operating like a shark from Shark Tank make money?
Well, so this is a hot topic, okay? Because when I started looking at Dr. DeMartini brought me, again, it was a series with Dr. DeMartini, and I had Sharon Lechter on there and also Laurel Langmeyer. And they also all brought up in that particular series that they were now living on their investments, and that their life work was bonus, right? All this stuff that they do for passion. And I started going, okay, that's the new measure of success. I want to live on my investments. And I thought, what's the quickest way for me to jump in on living on my investments? Well, yeah, I can invest in some places, but what else could I do? And I thought, where am I wealthy? I'm rich in my connections and my ability. And so I set the intention, how can I exchange my skill set for investment in companies, for equity, right? And now that I'm doing it, I'm hearing so many people consult for equity or bring their money and their resources for equity, or they use different things that they're skillful in. And the other thing is there are even rap songs. I was listening to some rap song and the girl was like, pay me in equity, and I was like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Right. And you look at Gary Vee or, different people, there are a lot of people teaching now. If you can see a business that is doing well, but that is missing something you bring to the table, whether it's systems, great social media presence with ads turned on, or a funnel or whatever, if you can really go to them and enroll them and look, I can bring this to your table. And if I do XYZ, I expect, let's sign a contract that I get this amount of equity in the company or this percentage of the increase that happens. And so I think that's going to become even bigger in the recession, if there is a recession, right? And whatever your belief is about what you say or don't say, Napoleon Hill was really great about pointing vision in the middle of the recession. I usually stand there, but however you stand, people are talking about it. So if you can find ways to bring your expertise without coming out of your pocket, but actually earn equity, and that's how you can be paid like a shark, is by consulting for equity.
That's a brilliant response. And, it's a lot of these, big shark folks, they've done exactly that. That's how they got to that position. And the bigger they got, it was, they kept increasing that action of leveraging who they are, their brand, and what they've built to acquire more equity in other companies. And I could speak this from another perspective, have a real estate background. We do this in real estate too. Like, listen, I can find a buyer, or I can find a property, and you put up half, and now we're partners. So Michael Lecter, Sharon Lecter's husband, wrote a book called No Money Down, right? You leverage that same style for many things in life. So you can buy properties or businesses with no money down by leveraging what you're saying. Find some kind of use that you can offer the other party. So it's a great strategy to utilize in a lot of parts of life too. So, and it does become more relevant as you.
And JV, you're talking about JV. Well, it becomes more relevant when you have a name, because then the celebrity name may attract more money or resources or clients. And people know they can count on you for that. But there's also what you talked about, low-hanging fruit of real estate, or looking at what do I have that when I put it together with somebody else, now we have a business and we both have less work, because you bring your team, I bring my team. And now we're just showing up for the parts that we're best at. And boom, now you've got another stream of income. If it were only that simple, and boom, you have a baby, right? Yeah. If it just stayed right, like cute baby, but the baby needs all kinds of care. Yeah.
Thank you, Dora. Appreciate it. All right. So how does it feel to work directly with Denis Waitley? Because I know you and Denis have worked doing a lot of amazing stuff together. So he's one of the folks, if you don't know, check out the interview with Dr. Denis Waitley. It's one of my, I don't like to say my favorite interviews, so they're all great, but it was a great interview. I mean, really, really great. Almost 3 hours. He really did a great analysis of the self-help industry. I mean, it was like a mastermind, a masterclass on like how it evolved and where it's at currently versus where it started. So check that incredible interview out. But working with an amazing man like this, who was one of the founders of this incredible movement, what's that feel like?
He, like I said before, is one of my very favorite people in the world. He's one of the kindest. He lives by a core value that I value, which is kindness. And yeah, just getting to hear how he's processing life, even in this phase of his journey where he's almost 90. He's walked through chemotherapy several times, and he just bought a rower Okay, he's rowing 15 minutes a day now because his posture was off. Like, he snuck in and convinced the doctors to let him work out a year and a half ago in the center where the 50 and 60-year-olds work out, because he didn't want to have a vision of himself with all the 89, 90, like the vision the doctor had, right? And so he's living all of this stuff. But one of my favorite things is figuring out how to bring a giggle from him, or how to feed his vision or find something. So, at one point that was the new psychology of winning and getting the forewords from Les Brown and all these people. Then it was the tour that we did. At one point it was an album on Spotify that has some of his quotes in it, and we got it to Amazon Music bestseller. So he outperformed like Beyonce, and it was funny as he was in the hospital and hearing his voice laugh. And yesterday it was that he's now talking with Jim Poole, who has the technology of neuroscience, and he told me he's like 10 years ahead of what I had in mind. They don't even need the self-affirming statements. And I could hear the energy in his voice about the conversation and how that's creating something for him to do. So I'm constantly using that thermometer of what is, when you know someone, you can tell when they're just being polite, when they're hanging with you, and when there's life around something for them. So I've gotten an ear for when that life is. And my favorite thing is finding places that bring that life into his voice, whatever it is, whether it's be introverted and spend time with your turtles and kids, or if they have a pond and there are little turtles that they've named out there. Or if it's that he's ready to create something new. And that doesn't tell you how great it feels, but he is one of the great loves of my entire life, and one of the most personally impactful. And the last thing that I'll say that I think is relevant to everyone, right, is that when you're close to someone and you have the privilege and the trust of them letting you know, because someone like Denis Waitley, he's known as the most optimistic, positive guy. So when someone like that allows you to see, hey, I'm having a tough time, I'm walking through some tough things. When someone gives you personal access to walk through something tough with them, whether it's an illness, a divorce, a death, a something, that is a great privilege. And sometimes in this positive world, we're like, oh, you're killing my vibe. That's so negative. It's funny, right? But it is a privilege. It is a privilege to get to go to vulnerable places with people and to see and to support and to hold space, with someone. So when they give you that privilege, handle it with the privilege that it is. And it will often, you'll be better. I feel that I am better. I'm a better human because of that. So and I'm not, some people are therapists and they walk through tough stuff every day with people. I'm not that girl. I'm not the bring me all your burdens kind of person. And most of my people are super optimistic, but we all have tough times. So, walk it with the privilege that it is, because you do become better for it.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Adora. Appreciate that. You're doing an amazing job with a lot of things that you're doing with Dr. Denis Waitley. Amazing person who definitely deserves to be heard. So next question would be about types of events that you've held, and can you list some of your guests? So I know that's another third of what you do is events other than masterminds. So if you could tell us about some of the events you hold and some of the guests that come through there, how often do you hold these events, et cetera?
Yeah, so I do a virtual event that is community oriented for entrepreneurs. one every couple of months at least. And my intention is to do one a month, to pick up a rhythm. But we've had Vanderlei Silva, Hoist Gracie, Chel Sonnen, Babalu, who that was all Chinese to me before. If it's Chinese to you, they're UFC fighters and they're legends in their field. We've had Les Brown, Denis Waitley, Dr. DeMartini, Sharon Lecter, Jack Canfield, John Gray, Bob Proctor. The last public interview he did outside of his ecosystem was a conversation between Denis Waitley and him. He was honoring Denis Waitley on the New Psychology of Winning tour that we did. Michael Beckwith. I've done things as far back, even the director of the L Word, the show, and I'm a straight woman, but that was about the lesbian, I don't know, it was a hit reality show on Showtime. The What the Bleep Do We Know people, Elaine Hendricks, who was the stepmom in Parent Trap. And yeah, I mean, I continue to be excited by the various guests that we bring, but when we bring them, it's always within a vision. I always set a vision for the event, like the next two events that I have virtually. One is about becoming recession-proof scaling 0 to $1 million, right? That's the next event. The event after that with Les Brown is how to go from 10K to 100K months. So and we have all these $10 million funnel winners from the ClickFunnels community, plus it means they're revenuing at least 10 million a year in one of their funnels, which is one revenue stream. And so the reason I have that vision right now, and I'm doing so much around recession and money, is because people get afraid and the media is putting a lot of bad news out there, and we're coming right off of COVID. And I know that when people feel supported and they have a vision and they have resources for that recessions are also the time where people really can get rich, they can get wealthy. And so I have a vision for conscious entrepreneurs not getting locked in all the media and becoming a statistic of the losses, but joining and thriving. And I have that vision because the entrepreneurs that I'm called to, they're serving a lot of people. You know, they're helping with healing, with relationships, with emotional standpoints, with insurance, with finances, with all these different areas. And so I think it's really important to fortify those types of voices. And then we have the Think and Grow Rich Mastermind coming up in Puerto Rico. We have an Atlanta event with Les Brown.
These are all paid or a mixture of paid and free? Or
so the first few virtual ones that I told you about, there's a free option and there's a VIP option. It's like $47 or $97. It's not, it's not major.
That's a good business strategy to make it free. And then if you want to be VIP, just upsell a little bit.
Yeah. And then it helps us pay for the VA and the graphics.
You need money for these events. People don't understand that. Like there's a lot of work that gets behind the scenes. I make the analogy too, because I used to build a lot of houses, and many people, they don't want to pay the general contractor. That's the person who puts everybody together. Like you want a finished product, you need a person to put everything together. There's work behind that. And they don't get that, that 20% or whatever it is, 25% that goes to the GC. Like somebody's got to build this house. Somebody's got to put the electrician and the plumber in the same room and do different things, like somebody's got to put this event together. Somebody's got to get the speaker like you, or, somebody's got to get the virtual guy to get the tech stuff going on. There's a whole seamlessly, it seems seamless, but it's not seamless. There's a lot of events that have to happen to glue together. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, the Puerto Rico is a paid event and we're staying in a resort and all of that. So it's a different level. And then the Les Brown, it's a paid event too, where we are determining this week what that admission, general admission versus VIP and all that will be. But 100% of the profits for the two Les Brown events, which I love, and is a clue, is 100% is going to a shelter in Albuquerque, New Mexico that houses children and rehabs children from sex trafficking. So we're funding them staying open 24/7 because right now they close at 9 p.m. And so the kids go back on the streets. And so we're funding them staying open, and we're all playing this game of contributions. So we're all adding value to the entrepreneurs and going, how can we help these entrepreneurs that are earning 10K get to their 100K months? And we're putting things together that we charge for in that offer, but then 100% of that offer goes to that shelter.
Brilliant. Thank you, Dora. Dora, you're doing great, by the way. Next question is about gatekeepers. We talked about this right before. Maybe we can have just a minute or so discussion on it. First of all, what are gatekeepers and door openers? You can define that, and then why are they important?
Yeah, gatekeepers and door openers are different. Gatekeepers are the people that are managing the calendar, or, they're the contact person. Sometimes it's an agent for a sports person, or it's an agent for a speaker, or it's the daughter of a speaker who is now the role of the gatekeeper. But they're the person who answers the phone. If you want to get in touch with the CEO, the owner, the founder, they're the person that's there to sift and sort and make sure only things that actually would add value and be priority to the founder get through. And that's their job, because usually, like I've heard about Grant Cardone, that he knows that he's a pushover and says yes to most things. So he has lots of solid gatekeepers around him that make sure that by the time you get to him, you've been very vetted and they see real value and intention. So they're super important because you have to know how to communicate in a succinct way. And the more powerful the person, usually the gatekeeper is more shrewd too, and more, even if they're very friendly and courteous, they're very shrewd because it's their reputation on the line, their job on the line. Actually, if they don't do a good job of keeping time wasters out, they're not doing their job. Right. And the more powerful. And so a lot of times people will call gatekeepers and be like, how's the weather? How are your kids? How are you, and do all this fluff stuff. And it doesn't actually work. They may have a great chat with you, but you're still not getting through. Nice. And then door openers, they're something totally different. And a lot of times you'll see these people end up in PR, but they may be a gatekeeper, but it's a different type of gatekeeper. They have relationships and they have access to doors or certain people, certain networks, certain resources. And if they open that door for you by saying, hey, I don't know why Dennis Rodman came in my mind.
I know his gatekeeper. I interviewed him.
Okay, well, I know one of my clients flew him out for an event at the at the All-Star games. But say they say Dennis is my cousin, or Kim Kardashian's my best friend, or whatever, right? They have a certain relationship, or I've been working with this person for years, like Dennis I'm kind of a gatekeeper and a door opener, and that I see how many people ask for book endorsements every day. He gets a message, I love you, I'm your fan, please, I want to feature you, or I want to interview you, or right. So in that way, sometimes I play a gatekeeper. But if I see something like Jim Poole didn't even know I knew Denis Waitley, but I know Dennis loves neuroscience. He's a geek about it. I know that he's walking through cancer and chemotherapy right now. And I know that Jim Poole's technology that he works with stage 4 cancer patients every single week at one of the biggest cancer organizations, because his app helps the nervous system calm down so the body can heal and bring out mitochondria and do all this super cool stuff. So for me, as a door, that's when I become a door opener, because I have a vision of this could help Denis. And I'm a big advocate of Jim Poole and the new Calm app. I use it every day. I'm a geek with that. I'm like a super fan, right? So it makes sense when I see this vision of the two being better together. And I know by helping Denis for the Jim Poole, it's just one more new Calm user, like TD Jakes is a user, Tony Robbins, right? All these people. So I know it's a win for him. I know who Denis is and the caliber of person he works with. And I know the caliber that Jim Poole is. So now I become this door opener and a bridge between the two of them, because it feels like so destined that I must, right? So a lot of times people will come to me as a door opener and they're just going right for the door that they want opened, but they're not actually like being with me as a human being and what I care about, or painting a vision that's really that I'm connected to. And if I'm not connected to it, like it doesn't serve either me in some way, and that's every door opener, right? Whether I want to be that way or not, we all have our own things that are, or it doesn't serve the person in such an outrageous way that I feel like it's going to raise my status and connection with my own connection, right? Because if I don't bring them things that are valuable, I become part of the time wasters. And that's not what I'm here for.
Right.
I'm here to connect, to add value to, if you're in my crew, I'm about adding value to the people in my life, whether you're my daughter, you're my dog, you're my friend, you're my dog, like, what's up, dog? I met my puppies, but it went there. So a lot of people will get so high on their own product and what they have that they miss the door opener or the gatekeeper. And they miss the, like, am I adding to the vision that this person has of themselves?
Yeah.
Right? Like, why do people go buy an Apple computer or a Louis Vuitton or something? It's because or invest in a charity or Tesla. It's because they identify with Elon Musk and what it is to be an innovator, or Apple and what it is to be. So it's the same thing when you're approaching a door opener or a gatekeeper, first realizing they're two different entities. Sometimes there's overlap, but they have two different core jobs. And then either way, how are you elevating their status when they go to make this move for you? Because that's how they need to see it in their mind. And they'll see it in their mind as like, my boss is going to think I'm so awesome for letting this person through, because this person is going to better their life in XYZ way. Or I am bringing so much value. This person's going to be so happy because now cancer could be easier. The healing could be easier for him. And he'd be a great voice in New Calm and Jim, right? Like, that elevates how I'm seen by Denis. I always want him to feel like I'm bringing goodness to his table, that I'm a giver, not a taker from his table, right? So
that would also make you a great connector, and some people call it a rainmaker, right? Because you're doing the impossible. You're making great things happen. You're making rain happen by connecting two very powerful people, or whatever the situation is, together, that they probably couldn't have done on their own. Because you see that vision, you see that connection. No one else sees it, and that's why you're the first to capture it and put those two wires together.
That's awesome. I love that. Make it rain in all the best ways. No hurricanes, right? But we need to make it rain.
Thank you, Dora. All right, Dora, the next question before we get into the very super quick temple questions. Why to respect a connection? Why should you respect the connection? And I think you'd be great to answer this, because it ties into what you just talked about. When people make connections, right? Like, if someone made someone a door opener, they opened a door for you that you never would have had opportunity for. If you rise to the highest levels, why should you always remember and not forget that connection and respect what they did for you? I mean, going to indefinite,
Yeah, well, at some point, again, they held a vision that you weren't holding, and they created a vision together. And this does get tricky because, like I know Brent Gove, amazing XP realtor, EXP is the top of that organization right now, and he connects people all the time without expecting anything in exchange. And he has the top real estate team with lots of brokers, and the equity has come back to him. His business is real estate. So people are giving him all kinds of real estate connections or joining his team. So some connectors, that's how the exchange goes, that they're connecting everywhere they can. And a certain amount of that is reciprocated. And the way you would remember is, like, first of all, always thanking that person, send them a gift, send them a thank you, give them a shout out, do something that honors them, respects them, right? But then thinking of, how can I give them business too? How can I elevate? What is their vision? Where could I connect them to someone, whether it's a realtor or a real estate business or deal? How can I give value back? I think that's very powerful. Then there are professional connectors, right? And whether that's the general contractor and you pay them, or it's a connector like me, that there's an upfront fee, or like I always expect now, because I say it, when I go out of my way to put certain connections together, I expect to some kind of percentage or pay, and definitely to be worked in the deal flow somehow. So whether it's a small percentage, but I make that clear going into it, because lots of people are connecting and are connectors, but it's not their main business. Where as a professional connector, it would be like asking me to cut your hair for free, right? or like, can you just drive me all over to all these houses and make calls on my behalf and then get nothing? Can you do that for free? It would be like asking a real estate agent, just to hook me up, And it's been a bit tricky, because Malcolm Gladwell was the first one, 20 years ago, to write The Tipping Point and to say connectors are a major important part of your business. And a lot of connectors end up in PR or real estate or network marketing or, something like that. Regardless, I would look at, okay, what is their field of business? What do they value? And how do I honor and respect and give value back to them? And it's not a tit for tat thing. You can't always measure those things perfectly, but you certainly can, always honor, be thankful, open other deals for them. I would look at where are they winning or wanting to win, and how can I add value to that?
That's a beautiful response. Thank you, Adora. All right, Adora, we're moving into our next segment. This is on speed dial here, so probably about 20, 30 seconds each question.
Okay.
And these are all questions I asked to famous people like Stephen Covey, Denis Waitley, Les Brown, you name it, everyone that's been on here, Brett Farr, So the questions are really about money in some capacity, but also entrepreneurship. So we'll start. Well, the first one's actually a little bit odd compared to the rest of the questions, but it's important for me as a writer, and I think for the writing community. Can one book change the world?
Yes. The end. No, Think and Grow Rich. Look at the Bible. Look at, Course in Miracles. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank
One
you.
book in the right hand with a mind that applies it. Yes.
There you go. Thank you so much. All right, next question. What role has networking played in your life? Now, I know you touched upon a lot of this in your story, but if you can condense it in maybe, a few sentences.
It's everything. Networking is everything. Not only the level of people in your network, but it is like an endless supply of opportunity and resources, because once you learn to network well, and then to figure out what people need and then to be committed to helping them solve those needs and to add value, there's always going to be an opportunity there. It'll come up if you're relentless, always.
Thank you, Adora. Adora, next question. Is mentoring important, and who are some of your mentors? I mean, I know you've already touched that, but if you can, condense that. Quick summary.
1,000,000%. And I always have a mentor in my life. I say the best heart surgeon in the world should not do heart surgery on themselves. Right?
Yeah.
And that's why it's someone, even if you're the best in the world and you tell everybody to do exactly what you need someone to tell you to do, it's that outer perspective, someone that is emotionally detached from what you have going on and has actually created success, and has the ability to communicate that. It's very powerful. And I won't be without a mentor. I love Shanda Sumter, one of my favorite business mentors. She's the one that taught me to list, build, and one framework of monetizing my virtual events. But more than the strategy, she consistently holds a vision of movement and contribution, and just there's a certain way that she speaks, and she's very spiritually driven, that when she speaks, I move. So that's the important thing. When you're choosing a mentor, I think it's not just about their strategy, how great they are, how many other people love them, which is very important. But more important is, how do you respond when you're in their ecosystem? And when you find someone that gives you insights, that gets you to take an action, that gets you to see yourself differently and gets you in movement, don't let go of that mentor.
That's incredible. Thank you so much, Adora. Adora, now we're going to move into some finance stuff, and really ties into money and things like that. What are your favorite financial books, if any? I don't know if you read finance books, so hopefully you'll read a few when I give some.
I know, you got to send them to me because I missed that day, that goodie bag day. Yes, I mean, Think and Grow Rich isn't really a finance book, right? But of course I read, I'm thinking of The Peaceful Millionaire, but she's my client. I would say, and Dave Ramsey, I love some of his stuff. Susie Orman,
you said, right?
Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I've definitely read that. I tend right now, as far as finance books, I'm looking away because I'm trying to recall who I'm paying attention most to are my tax strategist, who was the tax strategist for Alex Sharfin and I believe Russell Brunson even. And so that's more hands-on and what I need when it comes to finances, because I feel like, and then Pace Morby, who is the real estate, subject to finance guy, and why I'm paying attention, and Profit First. That was a really good book for entrepreneurs. So about the books that I've brought up, one side is all mindset, Think and Grow Rich, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is huge for the quadrant of investing. But I really am starting to think real estate is the place for multiplication. Like, we can't work ourselves into independent wealth. You have to make it rain, earn the most that you can, and then invest it, right? So that's why Pace Morby has my attention, and my tax strategist, because my tax strategist taught me, no, instead of paying this high tax amount at the end, and she used to work for the IRS and helps entrepreneurs pay zero taxes, but no, we need to invest in something that is an asset, and now your taxes have gone down. So I tend to, because finances are not my expertise the way that they're yours, I tend to, rather than just read a book, pay more for the expert and for the person that will help me then put the strategy into play. And my tax strategist also really leans heavily on real estate and buying businesses as a strategy.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Do we need money to survive?
100. I mean, I want to say 100%. but it is 100%, because even if the money isn't yours, if it's a woman or a child living on the government or living on welfare, that's taxpayer money, that's government money, it's taxpayer housing. If you're if you have a sugar daddy or sugar mama, you're still exchanging services or a way of being and giving up freedoms, certain freedoms, in order to control or have access to the money of someone else. So right now, unless you live in some community where an ironclad barter system is happening, or you're living, on the land off grid somewhere, which we could probably still find a way to argue money is involved somehow. Yes, it's important. And you can't live without it.
That's a beautiful response. And I like the fact that you caught on to that second part where you were talking about even people that don't pay the money. You got to look behind that. So my books, and we'll talk about it in a second, but my last book, The Survival of the Richest, that was actually, I created a whole term for that. So survival, obviously, was the argument there. Finance is an extension of survival. That's one of my conclusions. But this term was called for prosperity. So survival by a third party is a person that it seems like they don't need money, but the reality is there's a third party behind that's paying that money. So even in those situations, this was part of the argument, the root still comes back to you need money. So if you and the people that want to live off of land and go off grid, they still need money. Somebody's got to pay for that land, right? And at some point, if you want to protect, even we can go to the Amazon tribe members, right? Like somebody's got to protect that land through money, or else eventually they're going to just keep getting smaller and smaller, and they'll be gone, because the whole world is operating on this thing called currency. So
I agree. It's energy, currency, flow. Yes. Thanks for breaking that down. I do love the title and the branding. You've got great, solid branding back there. Pretty colors.
Thank you so much, Adora. Is finance necessary for everyone? Just an extension of that question. So finance, I don't want to influence your answer, by the way. You hit it right on the nail, so I had to say so.
Yeah. I mean, for me, finance is like the flow of that currency. Finance, yeah, it's the flow of how you are financing your life, your dreams, your existence, your legacy or lack of it. So yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much, Adora. Just 3 more questions and we're done here. How important is having a purpose in business / what is your purpose?
I had a breakthrough with Eckhart Tolle one year, who was saying, like, what if you lived in the fact that you're here, you are on purpose, like you are on purpose. And that was an important part, because I grew up in a period where purpose-driven life, purpose-driven everything was everything. I was like, what's my purpose? What's my purpose? Oh God. And then I would jump, when I was high about fitness is my purpose. Oh, now I'm all about women is my purpose. And man, I confused myself and suffered a lot, because I can yield to perfectionism and wanting to get the perfect answer and always doubting if I got the perfect thing. And so I remember he was saying to just breathe, and like, if I'm cleaning the dishes, I'm in the flow of the universe of clearing out old energy and restoring balance. And, I was playing in this. And at that same time, one of my best guy friends, who I'd never done business with, called me, and I didn't know what I was going to do next. I'd left Egypt. The riots had broken out. I was divorced now. I left when bombs were going off, pregnant. That's a whole other saga, an episode in the story, right?
Was that a long time ago?
That was 2011.
Oh, wow.
So my daughter's 11. Right. And she was born, she's about to be 12, April 21st, 2011. So the riots broke out in January, and I was living in Egypt. It was crazy. And so I came here because looters were, invading hospitals, and it was just a crazy time, and kids weren't getting passports.
Wait, how long did you live in Egypt for?
2.5 years.
Wow. That's one country. I've been in a lot of places. I haven't been there. It seems like a cool place.
It's so cool and ancient and profound, and like distracted and all the things. So
Sorry.
kind of like when you go and see Rome or something and you're like, how can a place so beautiful have graffiti? You know, why is there dirt on the ground? You know, you're like, why? Yeah. So I don't know where I was going with that.
Purpose. Sorry.
Purpose. So I remember I was like doing this whole, I'm on purpose. What if I just rest and I'm on purpose? And my friend called me and he said, Adora, we found a way for people who have big Facebook groups to get them money. You know, we place some ads, we take them off, If you can connect me, this is your bandwidth. I don't know how to do this. If you can connect me, we can create some income. So I just got an inkling, called my friend who owned Hot Moms Club, Jessica Dene, and she wrote those books. She answered my cell phone right away. And she was like, you're never going to believe this, but we were thinking about this. We have all these followers and we don't know how to monetize. We plugged in a system. They started making 10, 15 grand a month. And I started making a percentage of all that. And I did that with several other people. And it was by standing in, I am on purpose. So I could speak out of both sides of my mouth on this and saying that I believe it's important to infuse the sense of I am on purpose. I'm living a big purpose. That's very important to me. And if you wait around for some angel to come and tell you this is your total purpose, you're going to be miserable. Not you, me. That is my experience. Everybody's a little different. I found that I have to choose. For me, I love the feeling of passionately on fire with a purpose. And I like to say my purpose is activating and connecting with a God inside of me and living the highest version I can while helping other people activate that inside of themselves. And that can look like a lot of different things. And it's a choice. Just like happiness is a choice, peace is a choice, perspective is a choice. When I'm looking for you could spin out waiting for the perfect purpose.
That's brilliant. So my purpose is, in one sentence.
My purpose is to live the highest calling and expression of God's design for me in my life and to activate that in other people.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. All right. 2 more questions. What would you like to accomplish in the next 10 years or so, and why?
Well, I want to be responsible for child trafficking coming to an end, but not just that, for all of the children and women who have walked through that, to create places and to have been part of creating places and resources for them to move into thriving and into healing and into pure joy. I want to be wildly wealthy and to have done that, creating impact that's positive in the planet. And why is because I wasn't born in that space. And I believe blowing the cap off of that is like the highest expression of like, that's not the end, and that it's possible, but also because, and for the child trafficking and all of that is because we've all walked through really hard things, right? And when we ourselves, myself, when I'm a stand that I can be as joyful, as happy, as financially free, as abundant as possible, I'm standing that children and women and boys who've been through what I consider to be way worse than what I've even been through. I've met people that have been through thousands of hours of rape before they're 12, and their identity is that. So moving them to a place of not just survival and ending that, like that, the US, we're the #1 consumers right now of child trafficked children, which is disgusting. And like most people don't even know. So we need to end that. But then moving, if I don't accept my absolute thrival, like real joy flowing in, not just survival, not just, all right, I'm functioning, but pure joy, then how can I look at someone like that and go, you can be joyful? You can accept peace. You're worthy, right? Like I have to break through my own ish as a stand for all of humanity and be a lighthouse for that. And then I'm a stand for like, what does it take for these people? And it's really because I believe that we are all one, that it is impacting us, whether we like to think it is or not. And I know we have to manage our own lane first and get it, but often that doesn't come until we start focusing out and contributing.
Movies, books, are they in the picture for the next 10 years? More movies,
Yes.
more books?
Yeah. So I'm not going to say the title of it, but there's a book that I'm intending to write in the next year and a half that is around creating connections and actually feeling more abundant through that. Like it's a way of wealth.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. All right, Adora, last question. What would you like to be your legacy this world? I know you mentioned it several times, but if you can consolidate in one sentence, I want my legacy to be, what would that be?
Yeah, and that I have not only impacted my own children, my own, household and the people that I come from, but that there is a legacy of financially free, spiritually alive entrepreneurs that are living their most, highest versions of themselves, and specifically people who have been sexually or physically abused, like this network of wildly unleashed in the best ways, spiritually, financially, emotionally. And that's important because that's our families. I mean, right now, if I'm going off again, but if 1 in 5 that we know of have been molested or sexually abused, and it's more like 1 in 3 now that the numbers are getting more, that's a third of our society. And there's a group think that's impacting everyone. And that's a lot of constraint. And what we need is true freedom. And when you bring freedom to human beings, financial freedom, which is your value system too, right? When people are eating well, feeling well, taking care of well, they're usually generous and start taking care of people around them. And I just think that's where we need to go.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Adora. Adora, I want to conclude and say thank you. I'm honored again. Pleasure that you were here today. And we did 2 interviews today. We did it on the special mastermind retreat. So thanks again. I'd like to leave the floor to you. Any last minute thoughts, conclusions before we conclude out?
Thank you so much for your work in the world, for your commitment, for your consistency, for your heart in creating freedom and stability for people in the world. And I know that you do your best to bring the best resources, tools, people together. And anyone listening, like wherever you are, you are here for a reason, for a purpose. Something was destined, and now we're back to purpose, right? Like you are destined to express something here. And I really believe that if you commit to that and get yourself around people like Dr. Finance and the people that he brings you here, and just take inspired action again and again and again, the world needs what you have and who you are. So please nurture that and bring it forward for all of us to experience.
That is beautiful. Thank you so much, Adora. And where could they find out more information about your website, your social media?
Yeah. Instagram, it's at Adora's Groove. And on Facebook, it's Adora Crystal Evans. So look at those initials. What is that? ACE. Yeah. And so you can find me Adora Crystal Evans, and then adoracrystal.com, richwithconnections.com. I think we have growthevents.com now. Let me see. I'll send it to you after.
Okay.
Because now I have 40 text messages to go through.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Adora. Folks, check out those websites. Incredible. And we're going to conclude. Thank you again, Adora, for being here. Dr. Anthony Criniti IV here, also known as Dr. Finance. You've been watching the Dr. Finance Live podcast, folks. This is not the special Mastermind Retreat edition. The other one we did today. This is the real one. She's part of the real regular scheduled program here. So If you want more information, go to drfinance.info. Also, feel free to go to YouTube. We're going to have this blasted on YouTube and 20 plus major podcast directories as well. Don't forget to go to Adora's website. And also, if you're interested in finance, so this is my first book I wrote for my finance students over 10 years ago, The Necessity of Finance, and then the most important lessons in economics and finance. And then finally, The Survival of the Richest, which was the conclusions, all my conclusions in this big 500 plus page book, tying all the different scientific arguments and history together. So with that said, folks, don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe. And we'll see you on the next episode. Bye-bye now.